If you could instantly learn any skill, what would it be? I think I have seen this problem before, and my answer remains the same. I want to talk to whales and know what damage we have already done and what they think about it to our ocean life. The WNS, the abbreviation remains the same. W, should you wish to have a written form of communication during your work breakout rooms, and S, if you would like to have a spoken medium. We will group you accordingly when we open our breakout session. Up next, our code of conduct. Should you feel uncomfortable or come across scenarios, hopefully never, but should you come across any of those scenarios, please feel free to reach out to the team. The emails are on the Frama pad. And of course, we also have our chat, which you could flag. And the code of conduct is, I'm just going to quickly also paste it in our chat. So it's handy right there. Pretty much the ways if you would like to have your video, you could have that, or you're free, feel free to close, not have your video camera on. Completely fine. Have a safe environment here, so we respect either of your choices if you wish to keep. And up next is housekeeping. Graciela, I think I'll give it to
It's
you.
me. Hey, yay. So I wanted to get back to the feedbacks that you gave in the last session and to go through some of the points that we should have covered last time and didn't. So first thing is from a pad demo, how to change colors, add names, and remove all the pop-ups. We always get some messages of people, oh, why is this all in French and what's happening? And so I just wanted to give you a quick walkthrough from a pad, how it works and what's the idea. So the from a pad is going to be our collective note-taking tool for this cohort. Please don't overwrite any of the things that you already see written there. Just your place to write is whenever you see those bullet points. Usually they are, in the notes or in prompts for questions, things like that. So these things here should not be changed. Um, in some cases, you will see colors in like highlighting things. This is to indicate that each color is an author. So you can see here in the participants menu in the top right, sometimes it shows down here. You can add your name, for example, and now my color, every time I add it, will be this little salmon orange. Another thing that you can do is to go to this little engine here and change the language. So you can add your own language to, and this will not mess up the whole thing. So you can add like, let's see, what's a good, uh, Português do Brasil. And then everything goes in Portuguese, and these won't mess up with anyone's from a pets. And then you can see that you can change the colors, like you can display the colors for each author or not. I recommend you keep these number of lines. I put that in English so everyone can. Where is the English? British English. That's a good one. Okay. You keep the line numbers because we're going to refer to that once in a while. You can untag this chat always on screen because people can chat in the front pad as well. Blah, blah, blah. And you keep, oh, I'm renamed as Nessim. And what else? Spell check, show markdown. Yeah, I think that's mainly it. You can see the history of change. But that's not relevant for you right now. And then you return to bed to go to the main from a bed. What else? I think that's pretty much it. You can change colors here. You can change the formatting of your text here. Yeah, feel free to unmute if you have any specific questions
Mhm.
about from a bed. The
Mhm.
other thing is this. Anyone has a question? No? Okay. The next thing is the Slack channel. What is it for? And to give a quick walkthrough, I think I need to stop sharing because I'm sharing just this window. Let me open Slack real quick. Mm. All right. So our Slack channel is mainly the Nebula-4. Let me see if you're seeing the same thing there. Yeah. Nebula-4 cohort is the main Slack channel that you were added to, but you also should also have access to the general channel, events and announcements. Those are general channels for the OLS community. You're more than welcome to interact in these channels too. They are they are fre- frequented, they are attended. The people from OLS go there in this channel. And you have access to a very large community. As we talked in the last session, there are more than 500 people there. In the general channel, we have 983 people. That's a lot of people. And for sure, there will be someone there willing to answer your questions or willing to interact and collaborate with you. So we really highly recommend that you go there and explore the Slack channel. Um, all right, now I've stopped sharing and share again the other screen because I want to talk about the coaching sessions. All right, real quick, the chats for everyone, the breakout rooms. So when you're in a breakout room, if you are writing messages in the chat, the message there will be only be seen by you and your group. So they are private within breakout rooms. I think there is a way, if you want to send a message to everyone in the main room, I think there's a way to do that. But for the purposes of the breakout room discussions, for these activities in the cohort call, just know that whenever you chat inside a breakout room, the message will be private for you and your group. What else? About written discussions, we want to give you agency on to decide on how to do that. Just know that writing things on the pad is a way to take care of folks that cannot attend the live session. And so having your notes, even in the written discussions there in the pad, will help people who cannot be there, cannot attend the live sessions, to have a sense of what was discussed and learn more from you. I understand that managing the chat and the pad sometimes can be difficult, especially if you're joining from your cell phone or from an iPad. So depending on why you're joining a written discussion, please be mindful of that. Like, we're not asking you to do everything if you can't. It's just that if you're joining from a device that allows you to maybe compile the notes from the breakout room chats and move them to the pad, that will be awesome. If not, that's okay. We just want to give you the option to do that. Any questions? No? All good? All right. Thank you. All right. About the coaching sessions, we are going to start them not next week, the week after that. The process to sign up is really straightforward. We have a Google form for you to sign up. There is a link for the copy of the pre-session exercise that you need to make. So when you click there, you're going to be prompted to make a copy. You click make a copy. And then there will be a Google Doc with a bunch of guidelines, a checklist of things that you need to be mindful and aware of. Then if you scroll down, there will be a bunch of questions that are meant for you to self-reflect on your project and the things that you want from your coach. You can copy paste that anywhere that you want. You can have a copy in a Google Docs, or you can copy that into a Pad or any other noting documents that you use. Very often the coaches ask for written permissions for your document because they want to take notes and make comments on your questions. So be mindful of that as well. So if you're sending that, we are going to send that to your coach, and then just try to make it in a way that your coach can take notes as well. Once you've done that, you can go back to the form, to the registration form. There are some coaches profile here, so you can understand which coach will be able to talk about which topics. And then you can choose the session and coach here in the drop-down menu. Then you should add your name, email, and then the link for that coaching session document that you just filled out. We need that to share with the coach so they can prepare for the meeting. Yes, Maite, sorry.
Yeah. Hi. I have a question on that. On the registration form, there's an option to choose a day and a time with each coach.
Yes.
Is that a thing? Does it start from there, or should we choose several days? Sorry if it's an obvious question, but I don't quite get it.
Oh, these options here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you should choose one for each session that you want to register, and you should go through this process for each session that you want. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you can
Thank
choose
you
only
very
one
much.
here for submission. All right. And then there are some deadlines, weekly deadlines for signups. So if you want to sign up for a session that happens on a Wednesday, you should sign up by Sunday, because then on Monday, we're going to go through like reviewing all the submissions and notifying the coach for that Wednesday that they will have a session. Same thing for sessions that happen on Fridays, you should sign up on Tuesdays. So we review everything, and on Wednesdays, we send the calendar invites and everything. So that's the last step of the process. Once you signed up, we review. We are going to add you to an event. You're going to receive a calendar invite for the event for that coaching session. That's it. Any questions? All good? Okay. So now I think it's back to Saya and Shen.
Lovely. That's a good chunk of information on your way. Do not have to digest all of it right away. Just the words. You have a coaching session coming up. You have a place to record your ask, which is a Google form. And you have Pharmapad, which has all the information that you can come back to. So do not be stressed. It's okay. We are just getting started with our cohort. Lovely. Before I give away, there's so many interesting answers, and I love that many of us want to speak various different languages. And I get to underwater, hold my breath, crafting immortal potions. I love that. Very cool. It's very interesting. Yes, yes. I hope. AI can help us to do that one day. If not, we will figure out our traditional ways of doing it anyway. Cool. And we are gonna get started with our session. Over to you, Jean. You can share your screen. Do we have Sean with us?
Oh, okay. I mean, should I just proceed? Sorry, I think my network tripped me out for a minute.
No worries, no worries. Yeah, you should have the permissions to share your screen. Should you have any slides that we should be looking forward to?
Yeah. Okay. I hope everybody can see this. So, yeah. So, I think I would start on a very beautiful note. I love so much energy. I mean, people have been asking questions right from the beginning of the meeting, even before the main section. So I'm thinking, how many questions am I going to have at the end of my sections anyway? But just to say this is going to be one of the most interesting sections you're going to enjoy because I'll be talking real life of what I've done and should the case you find yourself in my situations and how you could apply these things that I'll be talking across board. So at some point, you may notice that if at the internet challenge, I might have to, switch off my video. But at first, I want everybody to have a glance of who is talking and that. So welcome to Nebula. I think this is the second section you're having. So I'll be talking around ethos of open science. Okay. So I'm gonna be making the section, sorry, okay. So I'm gonna be making the section go a little bit more. I'm going to be, trying to deep dive. So I'll be talking on the values of open science. What does this actually really mean and why it matters for the climate that I came from, which is Africa. And here is a brief overview about me, about some of the things I've done or what I'm doing currently. So my name is Sheon, in short for Ulua Sheon Olufemi. So I'm Sheon Olufemi, and I'm an open science and digital skill advocate. I have my first degree in biochemistry. I did another degree, master's degree in public health. I'm doing some training around business administrations and policy. So I co-lead Bioinformatics Actress Nigeria, which is going to be our case study in this discussion. I'm an open science consultant for IGNOR, that is Institute of Global Distributed Open Science for Research and Education in Sweden, and there are affiliates. I serve as a program affiliate for their US brand. I am a previous OLS resident fellow. I'm a community leader with Research Software Alliance. I'm a peer review champion. I've previously been a NIBSBio fellow. I'm a Turing Web contributor, and I'm a certified open data editor. And I'm an incoming board for collaborative science. So I stay in Abuja, Nigeria, and these are some of the beautiful, stuffs about them. So you had your first class yesterday, and it's quite a lot of things that we must have been discussed. So we're going to be starting on a very beautiful note. I want you to, this slide was actually designed to be an interactive one-on-one with folks, but we're going to be using it in an online version. So you'll go to either your Framer pad or the chat, and I want you to describe what open means to you. So you just have 2 minutes to do that. I'll stop sharing and I'll read some of these things aloud, and we can pick up our conversation from there. So what does open means to you?
Feel free to come unmute and share your thoughts. Or we could have it the new note section from line number 82, where you can also add
Yeah, I'll
your
prefer,
thoughts
accessible. I'll
or
prefer that
chat.
we use the notes because we still have a lot of sections for them to interact and we don't want to take so much of their time. Yeah,
Okay.
accessible. Yeah. Collaborative. Okay. Transparency. Interesting. I still need more. We have quite a number of people in this stuff. So when you say something is open, what does it mean to you? Okay. I'm only reading from the chat. Do we have people who are dropped it in the notes? Okay. something that is shared by a group. Open means free. Wow, that's quite an interesting perspective anyway. So now, yeah, so open can mean a lot of things to so many people in different ways, right? But I will be bringing the conversation now to when we say open science. So what does open science actually or really, really mean? So what is open science? So I picked my definition from UNESCO, which describes open science as, that encompasses all scientific knowledge that is, openly accessible, reusable, reproducible, and it includes access to publications, open data, open software, open hardware, open methods, open peer review, open, and broader participation in science. But what I really want to talk about here is that when you think of open or open science in general, 4 things should come to your mind. One, knowledge availability. That is, whatever you are trying to make, whatever science you're trying to do, the knowledge is going to be available to the general public. Two, increased collaboration. That is, you talk more to people while doing the science, you bring different perspectives to make the science richer. Three, you talk about information sharing, where there's a transparent means for people to share the information and all. And four is that the information or the science you do at the end eventually benefits the society. So that is, there's a lot of science society engagement. So when we say open science, one we might want to think it just actually means a single thing. That illusion is kind of false. Open science is not actually a single thing. It's a well-connected ecosystem that brings in different kind of practices in different phase of your research, in different phase of the project together. We have what we call open access publishing for free, immediate access to research articles. We have what we call open data, sharing data sets, which is about sharing data sets using fair and care principle. We have open source software, trying to code openly, reusing codes, improving codes, and all. Open peer review, reviewing articles, peer review articles, normal published articles, and open education, trying to ensure that the process of education and process of learning is more easy and it's more free and open. And citizenship science, where the public tends to contribute into research in general. So when we are talking about this open science, why open science and why now? And what does this actually mean for Africa? So I'll give you very interesting statistics here. One is that we have about 20,000 open access journals in 2024, which why we just have only 35 in 2020. The UNESCO open science definition was already adopted by 194 member states, that is by 194 countries. Then we have an increased mentions of open science in open media 10 times in 2019, in 2020 upward than it was in previously. So why are people thinking about open science or trying to adapt open science principles in general? There have been a global shift. The COVID is a major highlighter for open science, for people in the open science. The US federal agencies, which basically funds about 60 to 7, even at the point it was going to around 75% of research processes worldwide, but now I think it's around 60 due to current shifts that we have. As most of them are now publicly mandating that open science, all funded public research funds should imply open science principles, which we'll be talking about. And COVID-19 actually demonstrates the power and stakes of open and rapid science, because quite everybody needs vaccine. People need prevention. People don't want to get COVID. So It kind of, improved the processes in which open sciences was done then. And then we have preprint servers. Preprint servers like Barex, Medrex have actually, transformed how scientific communication that are done. Quite a number of people tend to, put their work on there. People see it, make quick judgment or rapid judgment about it. Even for instance, in the modern day AI, a lot of recent advancements in AI works that are published are most likely published on ARX VIX. So it's quite very, very interesting to see that. And private philanthropists like Gates Foundation, I'm so aware of Gates Foundation, welcome are increasingly, I think the Gates Foundation will also make a proclamation that all their funded works should imply open science. Now, I came from Africa where, we have been historically excluded from, a lot of quite expensive journals because we could not pay. I mean, when you look at our GDP per capita compared to other developed nations, and all these publications have a minimum of around 20, 50 US dollars and all. And, compare it to the cost of getting a single article versus what a university professor hints in Nigeria or any other African country per year, and you'll see why it doesn't make so many sense and why we are historically excluded. Then two, you'll see that open science actually levels the ground, playing field ground for, knowledge creation. So a lot of people in Africa can actively come into the stage, play, contribute, get articles, do a lot of studies and all. I had quite a number of work on these, and I will show you practically some of the things we have done in BN and some of the things I've done in my other research, whereby we have used open data to contribute more into the global science space. So bioinformatics, Outreach Nigeria, this is one of the major reasons why we fund it to address this gap in Nigeria. And we try to, imbibe open science principles to underpin most of all the work in which we do. So we'll talk about the values of open science. The values of openness is not just only one. Openness has quite an epistemic value. It also has a social value. So when we think about openness, we think of it in terms of epistemic value. That is, it promotes reproducibility. That is, open methods and data allow us to verify, replicate, and build on findings. And this actually is the bedrock of trustworthy science. If you follow academic Twitter or let's say LinkedIn, you see quite a number of people trying to, write against a particular publication because we discovered that it's not reproducible. As a matter of fact, I work with one of my senior colleagues made a publication, a study that showcases that more than half of all social science studies that have been published in the last 10 years are not reproducible. So that means most of the social and behavioral studies that we have been using for to understand human behavior in respect to certain health conditions and all are not actually reproducible. So that means the science is not reproducible, the outcome, and down the line, right? So it also helps in error correction, when codes and papers are published, scientific communities can easily, catch these and correct the mistake faster, and it actually reduce waste of resources. It helps in cumulative knowledge. I have, actually benefited quite a lot from this. Open data, open sharing of data allow folks from all over the world to contribute to that data and see more insight. For instance, I've done quite a number of studies whereby I have my own data and I try to cross-reference with other data to see if there are significant disparities in certain points between the two data across different locations and all. And when we publish these studies, what happens is that we are able to, contribute into the large pool of knowledge, and the knowledge becomes more cumulative. So it also helps in diverse, perspectives. It allows research from low resource settings like Nigeria, Ghana, and other African countries, and some other American countries to contribute meaningfully to, research processes. It also has a social value. So when we think about this, we think that how does science benefit us socially? So it's of a public good. When think about open publication, you see, when open publication, when we have open access, anyone, not just subscribers of a particular nature, that to get a paper you would spend close to hundreds of pounds to get, or a few tens of pounds rather. But anybody could actually read and comment and bring in your perspective. Open data, people reuse data across different labs, different disciplines, different nations. Open tools, I mean, um, people have used a lot of different data analyzing tools, and it actually closes the technological gap. An open communities like OLS, BON, Turingway, and all, and these communities, in essence, ensures that researchers from different backgrounds can actually contribute and bring in and weigh in your perspective. People coming from biology, background, life science, public health, social science, linguistics, all bring in their stuff. So in Africa, this has actually helped us to reduce the traditional barrier where African institutions could not afford these journals due to subscriptions and all. So it helps us, it helps countries in Africa, it helps researchers from Africa to be able to come to the table and play and contribute more to the global science space. So I've been talking so much. I've been talking so much around what it means broadly. So I'm going to be giving you real life examples of what I've done through Bioinformatics Africa Nigeria, and what I've done personally. I mean, I could not bring in, so I'll just bring in some selected. I'll still refer you to some other, and where you could see some of the things that we do. So in basic, Bioinformatics Outreach Nigeria is abbreviated as BON. And basically what we try to do is we try to ensure that we build a critical mass of life scientists across the African region, whereby they could meaningfully contribute to science and play on the global science. So we do this by providing them with technical skills like data analytics skills, I've done trainings in HAR, trainings around GitHub, adequate GitHub for collaboration and all. And we also try to train them around how they could, do science in a way that is more collaborative, employing open science principles, and they could, go from there to what they would do, and they could just pick it up from there and then, and begin to imply it in their work. So I'll be talking you through some of the processes that we have worked through, and more importantly, I would also be sharing you some beautiful results that we have seen and some that, quite more beautiful. So by the time we started our program, we decided to do what we call a needs assessment. We wanted to understand what is the scale of bioinformatics or assessing research software, learning, and technical skills in Nigeria. So what we find was quite very, very catastrophic. So that we discovered that there's a large digital divide in low resource settings, because we run this across different Africa institutions, and a lot of things were quite pointed out. I mean, if you see this graph, I decided to put it here because of we have what we call 1/2, because the questions are quite, the responses are quite much. So you see we have limited infrastructure, training shortages, accessibility barriers people could not access. Some of the softwares they were using before, that they were created for a particular purpose on her. There is software sustainability, resource constraint, and all. So these barriers create quite a significant impact on research communities in low resource regions, which actually impede the growth of scientific competitiveness, international collaboration, career advancement for early career researchers, research reproducibility, and open science participation. So this was what we discovered. So what we now eventually decided to do, and for that was how we got our open data. So this data, we decided to make it open data. And for that, we decided to do something about this, which leads to what we call open science education. Open education. We decided to create what we call open science for bioinformatician workshop. So this was for our first iteration. Okay, so I could not put in, we have run in multiple iterations after that. So for our first iterations, we decided to, organize what we call open science for bioinformaticians in the year 2024. We have 2025 edition, 2026 is coming. And this essentially, what we did was that we are trying to train bioinformaticians, data skills enthusiasts. We train them around so many subjects. so many subjects which include how they could use GitHub for collaboration, what are the principles of open science, how does open science applies to what they do. We also took them through peer reviewing, how they could do peer reviewing and what does open science access means to them, and data management plans and all. So for the first year, which was our pilot, we had about 232 people which actually applied. We only trained about 48 people. We had, 7 speakers and instructors. And interestingly for us, we had about 184 people who are not yet trained. So, but because we discovered there's a large gap of people, we only trained about 1/4 or 1/5 of the people who actually applied. So we decided to make this training stuff public. So this is where the openness comes in. We documented the processes, we shared it on our GitHub. All the slides from that particular training are available on Zenodo. If you're on Zenodo now, you could just go there and check and type Bioinformatics Outreach Nigeria. I'm up to date slide, including the slide for this training is there. We wrote blog posts events to educate the public on what we discovered and how. Then we did this in collaboration with Bioinformatics of Kenya. For the second iteration, we got some funding to run the second iteration. Special thanks to Society of Software Engineering and OLS for funding the second iteration. And decided to put the video on YouTube, but due to we lost some part of the video recording, so we could not eventually achieve that. So talking still about open science in practice, so we decided to also support open science infrastructure, that is open infrastructure. We were part of a project called the Catalyst Project funded by Charles Zuckerberg Institute. We're selected as one of the 19 community partners on the project. And the project essentially is to provide biomedical research cloud infrastructures in underserved communities or in regions across Africa and Africa. So this training actually made us receive some very important trainings around hub management, train the trainer, and we also did some kind of open life science stuff, and we had quite a very beautiful interaction while going through that. So for another open science in practice stuff that we have done with this in BON is open communication. So what does this actually mean for us? It means that we tried in as much to reach out to the public via some of the things that we have done. We try to ensure that people get our information free. We try to ensure that we educate the public and it makes sense to them. So this is one of the trainings that we did, and we decided to write about it. We tagged it Empowering Life Scientists in Africa Through Open Data. It's an highlight from our training, and this training was actually supported by the Knowledge Foundation. You could go online and type it out, and you could read. So in essence, I walked you through some brief things that we have done in Bioinformatics Outreach Nigeria. So, but in essence, you could see how we have practically demonstrated about 4 pillars from 1 or 2 trainings that we have done. We have done so many other things aside from that, but we have done 1 or 2 trainings from this. So what does this mean is that we have been able to carry out open data, ensure that this data, I've been able to ensure that all the education, all the learnings that we did can also be applied to other places. I've been able to provide open research infrastructure to people. I've been able to go alongside the ways of open communication. And I've done so more, resource sharing and all. Now, I could say that basically that's what we have been able to do on the part of Bioinformatics Outreach Nigeria as a community of practice, trying to make life scientists in Africa to contribute more to globally. But on a personal note, these were some of the things that I've done, right? And essentially, trying to pay this in two phases, whereby if you as an individual are not having a particular project, you could also stand as an advocate for ensuring that there is openness in science. So this is 2 of some of the works that I've done, and there is one recent one which just came out last month, which I talked about doing science in a system that was not built for you, and I talked about doing science in the age of AI, and there was a lot of insights written from there. Please just do go online and search for it. So this is championing preprints in Africa, a call for recognition of African research setting. So in this particular stuff, I decided to advocate for preprinting in Africa. And this particular write-up came as a result of the significance, because I worked in research settings to date in Africa. And I've seen how so much preprint is not doing so much a lot. So I decided to pick it on to, write about my experiences and write about what we could do better and what could, kind of, incentivize people to do better. So apart from that, I also participated in a lot of interviews talking about preprinting in Africa. Here's an interview done by Issa Bio. You could, take time to listen to it. We have other different blog posts out there too that you could listen to or watch. But what the entire point of this slide is that you could also advocate for openness in science at wherever settings that you have. I intentionally put this particular slide here. Recently, I joined a think tank, a development consulting research services. And one of the tasks I was started with when I was joining is trying to ensure that quite a number of the papers that they had get out to the public. All right. So I felt that this is an opportunity for me to, advocate for openness in science. So I'll read the mail I wrote to my immediate line manager, and our response actually make 2 of our papers to be actually sent for preprint. And also, this also ensures that when we were designing the information dissemination for the organization, for me to put preprint as a major part, and it was actually approved. So I told her that, as I've earlier discussed, I'm preparing the manuscript ready for submission. While reviewing them, I noticed this, so I had to block that out. So while I review the possibilities of submitting our work to journal for consideration, I feel it's of essence that I promote the use of preprints in this case. Preprint, I explain what preprint is, that it's a version of scientific and scholarly paper shared publicly before formal peer review and journal publications. I told her that preprint majorly offers quick visibility, foster collaboration, ease of sharing, security over one's work, and devoid of extensive review while waiting for journals approval, especially in cases where there are few journals accepting work like this. So because the work is very, very niche, and I believe preprints will do so much good for us. I gave her examples, and she called for a meeting. We talked about this, and it has greatly influenced how the organization sees preference since then. So that's my brief story of what I've been able to do in open science and all. So I want to give you case studies, and this time around we'll be going into 3 groups. So in these 3 groups, we are going to take different case studies of research processes. So in these research processes, what I want you to do is to discuss between each other to see first what type of open science value is actually illustrated, or which type of open science value do you see that is kind of missing? What are the impacts, and what could they have done differently? So at the end of this particular exercise, I would expect that each person, in each group, we have just one person who could come out. You guys will vote in a person that's going to, share a major key takeaway. The discussion minutes is 10 minutes, but since I think we are relatively going out of time, we'll try to make it around 6 minutes. So I'll stop sharing, and I'll allow my host to put you into groups, and you'll take the questions.
Sean, a quick interruption. We have a question in the chat which I wanted to flag. If you could take the question from Fotis. Yeah.
Okay. Can we clarify something? Is it this question? Indexed where precisely?
Can I just very quickly speak? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Please,
I can.
Yeah.
Okay. It was when you were displaying the information about open access journals, and you had a number 20,000, and you said indexed, but there are different indexes. So where is this number coming from? Is it from the directory of open access journals?
No, okay. We have over 20,000 journals. Over 20,000, generally across board that have been published compared to the previous one. Yeah. That's what I was trying to say.
In DOJ?
No, generally across, you know, we have, when we talk about open access, I know we have the, what's the name now? The peer review director. Daniela will come and talk to you more about open science, but each different journals have different journals. I mean, they have different, how do I put it? Different operating models across board, right? So DOG being one, and some of all these, you know, expensive journals also operate open science. But the entire point of the conversation is that we have been able to more journals have been published in open access compared to what we have previously before the advent of COVID in 2019. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I'll put in the question now, and can we open 3 groups?
Oh, 3 groups.
Yeah, 3 groups.
I think we could do 6 and then share the scenarios 3 each. That would leave opportunity for everyone to discuss.
I was thinking of, okay, if we do 6, would they have enough time to discuss each one? Because we only have about 6 minutes, and we see our
I reckon yes.
Okay.
I think the groups could decide which part of the question you want to answer. It could be just the missing aspect, or it could be just the impact. You do not have to answer all the elements in here in the question with respect to the time that we have in mind.
Oh, okay. I mean, because I still have other sections, so no problem. I have no issues with that.
Okay. Should we do 10 minutes?
I don't think 10 minutes would be useful because we have barely less than 30 minutes to go, and I still have quite a number of slides to talk about, and one more exercise.
How many
Plus
minutes
a
you want?
reflection. Let's do 6.
6 minutes. Okay.
Yeah. So that scenario, hey, okay, I think.
I'm just adding the scenarios which to the breakout room, so everyone has a clear understanding of which scenario they would be picking up. Alrighty, lovely. A demo for Pharmapad was very cool. I didn't know that there are so many features in this at all.
Okay, do we have
Welcome
any?
back. I'm just going to give a quick glimpse that I see that you may not have enough opportunity to look into the Pharmapad and record your thoughts. That's okay. The Pharmapad is open throughout the session and afterwards. So should you have those thoughts already framed in your mind, add them later. Completely okay. But it would be lovely to have your thoughts recorded there. Uh, since we have a lot planned up next, we will just go directly to the second part of our session. Over to you, Sean.
Yeah, so I want to hear 3 comments. Okay, I think I was thinking I was talking to myself. Sorry. So I want to hear 3 comments. So I think we have 6 groups. In just a minute, I want to hear your feedback from what do you say about 3 for each group that so I want to hear your thoughts on scenario A, scenario B, and scenario C. So since we have 6 groups, so which person do you guys vote if you guys were able to vote? And if you guys were not able to vote, can we have people just to, make a comment, because it's actually very productive for me to hear your thoughts around this. That's the goal.
I'm sorry, are we supposed to talk or just write the comments? I was a bit
No,
lost.
talk to me. Talk to me. There's a point where you talk to me now.
Okay, so I was in a group with Fortis, Mr. Kopoulos, and let me just get her name real quick. Anu Adetayo, and we discussed scenario A regarding the researcher that made a collection of data from patients, and he did not store an additional copy of the data, and he lost it 3 years later. So we basically identified a lack of reproducibility by his part once since only this researcher who had the access to his data set. We also talked about the persistence of the data. He would not be able to do further analysis. And regarding what he could do to improve, we thought that maybe using an external SSD. We mentioned about the 3-2-1 rule, which basically meant would resolve his problem. So he should have at least 3 copies of the data stored in 2 different media, and at least one of these copies should be outside of the place where he's working on. That would solve his problem. And that was basically it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, great thoughts, great thoughts. I'll provide a general feedback. I won't be able to go into specifics, but I'll provide general feedback. So do we have any team or somebody's going to talk on scenario B? I mean, any team. Great work for, team whatsoever, maybe team alpha or
Yeah,
beta?
oh, sorry.
No, just go ahead.
Okay, yeah, we had this scenario B, and we thought that this scenario was a good example of collaboration, accessibility, reuse, and reproducibility, because the pipeline was openly shared on GitHub, and it means another team could use it to accelerate their research. And I think we agree that our main takeaway is that openly sharing tools increases their impact and helps scientific progress happen more efficiently. And
Yeah,
we were in the group with Owo and Sheng Li and me.
yeah, thank you so much, Martel. Or Beneba, not sure if I pronounced the name so well. Pardon me if I murdered the name. Great thoughts. Love the team. Love your inputs. Love the way you guys position your stuff. So for C, do we have somebody who's gonna talk on C? A team is gonna talk on C. So no groups discuss C. That's quite sad.
Sorry, I'll jump in. So C was discussed with Stephanie, Victoria, Masume, and I'm George. And we had a few minutes to discuss that it best represented just the sharing of cumulative knowledge. We actually had a great example from Masume, who explained that a very similar scenario happened. I won't go into all details now, but the ability to have publicly available materials that are open means that at some point, if the world changes or scenarios change, the open content is still there, so you can migrate into a different way of working that's still open.
Yeah, thank you so much, TT. So the general takeaway from this exercise is this. We've painted 3 different scenarios of how projects could either go right or go wrong, or how projects implement across different settings. Well, I mean, mine might bias if I'm using African, because I work quite a lot with African. But the essence is that you think about your projects, the project you're currently involved with, as collaboration and all. And this lecture, this training wants you to see how open science can drastically improve what you do and improve the impact. The main essence of science is to affect is to affect the entire society. And that's why I have to bring examples of things that's trustworthy. This could have been a very lengthy 1.5 hours talk, but I wanted a scenario where people think back and they're reflective of what they do and how they could actually move forward. And that's why I have to give both as a collaborative project and an individual. So I would also be giving you some clear examples of when how open science could, most likely move in an opposite direction and how to think about that. So I'll share I hope you guys can see my screen now. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great. So here are the nuances and trades-off. I mean, open science is not open science is a value, is not a role. And one of the reasons why I'll be talking about this is that generally there are places whereby you have to think and be quite reflective that applies here. And if open science would apply, what aspect of open science should I kind of So when you think about this, you think about first, for instance, standards can be too much. For instance, there's this principle in open science or in open data we call FAIR principle: make your data findable, make it interpretable, make it reproducible and all. But standardizing data too much could make some particular type of qualitative data their lost their quality, lost their epistemic value and all. So you have to also think about this, that which type of standards do I want to apply to this? Two, open science could also spread errors. I mean, for instance, if the code is flat and is opened, and interestingly, nobody kind of goes there to make a lot of critical claims that could help in improving it. That same flawed code, flawed data could spread across. Even for that happens a lot around the COVID also. So, and a lot of policy were made around that had to be adjusted on the timeline. They're pretty very good examples of it. So another thing is that when you're the issue of transparency, it could also constrain expertise. For in a system or in a state where you are doing stuff around your community or open community, and you begin to, because when you talk about open leadership, the essence is that you receive feedback at every stage and you carry everybody along. But when you are working in a very diverse setting, and you have people who are not of the same technical expertise as you, and the fear during the process, and you will begin to make some critical judgments, the fear of you trying to over-explain yourself can lead to what we call self-censorship. You just feel, instead of me over talking about this, let me just take it out because I don't have the time to explain it over. So sometimes it constrains expertise, and open data could be weaponized. Instances in the case of industry that has to do with health, when you put people's health data out there, companies or employers could weaponize it against people. So things around weapon industry, data around weapon industry and all could also weaponize this data. So these are some cases whereby you have to think about openness that is a value and should not be a golden standard across all projects. So me giving you an example now is I will try to make sure that I'll try to speak on when we are trying to, I don't want to paint open science as a golden rule. So I'll try to give you some competing, real life competing value that sometimes compete with openness in science or whatever we do. And you will see clear examples of it. For instance, in the case of privacy and confidentiality, open data, for instance, in clinical trials, open patient data, data about their name, health status, and because that data we take in clinical trials, if they have underlying issues or not. In this case, this kind of data should not be open because employers can actually take them, and use them against folks' will. When you think about accuracy, quite a number of people drop in this case of AI slope. Quite a lot of people drop a lot of inaccurate or unverified data and preprints and all. So, and people take them and do them out of proportion. And this is one of the issues a number of people have with preprint system and all. So you should ensure that whatever you want to put out is a kind of accurate. So do not put actual data, things that are inaccurate in preprint or just an AI slope stuff. So I'll just pick one more from this angle. I'm thinking about epistemic diversity. So when you're standardizing, you're standardized, let's say, qualitative research. So you have to think about openness in this value, because when openness in this harm, because when you're standardizing research, you have to think about it that, okay, when you've standardized it, you apply the curve principle, the FAIR principle. What happens is that some of these things, you take away the epistemic value in it, and it's no longer knowledge rich. So you have to think of your openness stuff in this value. So here is a debate. And the debate is for you to be able to know, for you to be able to argue out scenarios that you occur in real life. In real life scenarios. I think these are real life scenarios that has occurred to me in real life. So I want you to go into two different groups. The essence of this exercise is for you to think about how do you want to present your case when you have an issue rising in your work, and how openness as a value can apply to it. So the very first motion, so I think you'll be in 6 groups. So the first motion should be you would argue for or against, right? So all public funded research data in Africa should be open by default. Then the second is preprint servers actually do more harm than good. So after this exercise, I'll show you some of my thoughts, and we can begin to talk about how you should be able to apply open science in your own personal journey. I think we also take 6 minutes for this. If my time is right, we have less than 20 minutes, and still have a reflection. A personal reflection is not going to be here. I want to ensure that we work within our time frame. So just 6 minutes, you'll be in 6 different groups. So in each group, kindly pick a topic, argue either for or against. But the essence is for you to be able to build your argument around when you have notions around this in your collaborative projects, and how you want to argue for openness as a value in it. So can we kick people into the rooms, please?
Magic is happening. This is magic.
Okay. Okay. I don't think I need to put it in the breakout room. I think we have one person left.
It's like sometimes it's just.
Okay, welcome back, all. Sorry, I'm trying to. So the idea is simple and basic. So for let me hear your thoughts. I'm going to cut this down. We're out of time. Sorry. So do we have anybody who's going to volunteer, or anybody voting in your group, which you want them to talk about? Ideally, not the people who talk the first time, right? But so we create room for other people. So they could talk about what they shared in the group, for or against each of the two motions.
The stage is open, so any of the groups, I see lovely note-taking happening on Framapad, and thank you so much for doing it. If any of you would like to come unmute and give us your perspective out loud, you're most welcome to do that now.
Okay, if the folks that want to talk are this previous one, then maybe we just take them now. Or should I just read a comment on this?
I reckon we can do a quick eyeballing on the notes and gather our thoughts from there.
Okay, so just read one or two comments from there, then move. Okay, in favor, public funding. She says that at least some results and the methods can be published, reused, and higher impact. The problem is that not all data can be open. Sensible data, ethical concerns, and risks of exploitation of another institution. We have a group from group hates. Adam. Okay. I think let me read this. This is already done. Stefan says, Victoria from Nigeria against. There could be sensitive data and you don't know who is handling your data for. There should be restriction rules. Moderators, if this is possible to know who access the data and who is responsible for something. That's bad. Victoria shared an example of someone who has taken money from bank account having personal details. Data is sensitive. So this will be the last one I'll read for preprint servers. Preprint servers can be harmful when they are unmoderated and anyone can post anything. Circumventing the peer review process is irresponsible. The peer review process prevents all data from being shared and potentially harmful within the community. Yeah, I mean, I could see a lot of beautiful stuff. I think I'm going to take more time to, read this, and to have to know what you're thinking about it. I'll share some of my thoughts now. I'll share some of my thoughts and I'll move to the final section of my talk, which is actually applying open science directly into your work. So, I mean, these are my own arguments, all public data for all public funded research data in Africa should be open. And if you want to argue for, you could say enables collaboration, prevent data hoarding, accelerated research. And some of the issues that we have against it is that communities will be exploited. There's this term that we call parachute science. Not so good word, but it's actually used to describe how Western folks have over the time exploit African research and African communities. And this actually, contextualize knowledge. Contextual knowledge is actually decontextualized. So for the other one, you could also see it down my slide. But the major essence of this is that you come across different situations in your workplace and there'll be an argument as to suppose why a particular data should be made open and or why a particular research could be made open and or why should you guys do preprinting. So the idea is for you to be able to know how you're going to present your case and how you're going to argue out, and to know when you have to take a pause to, we can't do this. We can't do this. This is your argument against that. And so the entire exercise is for you to be able to know how to present your case more evenly. If had it been we have in a more physical section, we will have invited two folks in this group to pick for and against, and both of you to hear your argument out and come to a consensus at the end of the day. But literally, there are no wrong or right answers. It's just for you to be able to think more clearly about research, about openness as a value. So here's my final section, applying open science to the work. You have think about research, you have think about open science. I've told you my story and all. So how do you now apply this into the work that you do? The work you do in Latin America, in US, in the UK, in Nigeria, in some place in Northern Cameroon, or whatever you've come from, or in Kaduna, Kano, on. So these are some of the things that you could do. These are some of the communities you could do. These are some of the things you could do. So you could use Zenodo. So this is your like an open science toolkit. It's not comprehensive, but these are things you could, just to start with publishing, you could use the Zenodo. It gives you free DOI. You could publish your work. If you're working around AI, data engineering, and all, you could use Larix, biomedicals, biomedics, you could use +1, you could use F1000. I think I had stuff on this. For data code, use GitHub. OLS is very big on GitHub, and it helps collaboration, virtual controlling systems, code sharing, even for documenting. For data, you could use Open Data Editor. It's a very cool data management tool. It's actually very open. It's just developed by Open Knowledge Foundation. So, you could use OSF too, Open Science Framework for Project Management. And I think it's developed by COH, Center for Open Science in Communities. Please stay active on our OLS community. You meet a lot of beautiful folks, and you meet me there. I interact back to back. You meet Sarah, you meet Mavika, meet beautiful you meet quite a lot of people from Nigeria and other places that you could interact with. Others that you could join could be the carpentries, touring way, and our own very community. There are very different criteria for joining these communities, but you have to be a partaker of our training before you could be part, unless by special invitation anyway. So where are you on the open science spectrum? So as you are part of this training, I believe you're at stage 1 already. So, it's open science is a journey, and every step you take actually counts. So you could either be starting off just a way of science or open science, or making you just part of this presentation. You don't really have a project, so you're starting out. You're getting there. You're beginning to start using GitHub, Zenodo, reading or uploading preprints. You're already actively practicing. I could say I'm already practicing. I've been sharing data, method, doing peer review, and all, and I've also been leading projects. But this is a kind of a very spectrum, a kind of ending spectrum. So if, for instance, I pick a new tool or a new system I want to work, or in a new part of the ecosystem I want to work with, I also go through the spectrum again. And virtually everybody is actually going through the spectrum. So reflection is, where are you right now in that your particular project? And what's the one step that you want to take or move forward with? I want you to begin to think about this more carefully as I'm rounding up my presentation. So here's your open science commitment. In our framework part, as we're taking this, I would like you that before you go, that there's this one particular thing that you learned today about open science that you didn't know before. Please drop it in your framework part. And one open science practice you want to practice, one open science practice you want to adopt to improve your work within the next few months. We'd love to see it with that. And one person in the community. The last one should be that you should share it with a person in your community, but we are reading this as a community. So because I'll be reading through the grammar part at the end later. But I want you to, one thing you have learned today that you didn't know before, please help us drop it. And one open science practice you want to use to improve your own work. So these are key resources in which I use to develop this and some of next steps that we have talked about. So I would be running on by saying open science is not a destination, it's a practice, it's a culture, it's a commitment, and it's a people, it's a community of practice. So thank you very much. Once again, my name is Sean, and I'm so happy to be here with you. So I think at this juncture, I'll take questions if they are. And if not, I'll be with you in the community. Bye.
That's a beautiful ending and a quote. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And we want to value your time. So please do drop the questions or your learnings at your spare time whenever you can get to them. And thank you so much for joining us. And our next session details are open tools and resources on the June 9, about the same time. So see you then.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh yeah, we do want to have a 2-hour session someday. That makes sense.